Perfect. Cool.
Beautiful. Yay. Welcome to the Man's Mind, episode 3. I have Dim Hapa here with me today, who's a men's personal development coach who works with men to help empower them through their challenges and motivation to become more confident in all areas, including their mental health. Hi, Dim.
Hey, Danielle. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Quickly before we get into it, because I want to jump straight into it, I'm just going to take a moment to ask everyone who's on board now to share this if it resonates in your heart, to raise awareness for men's personal development, to give men the opportunity to reach out to different coaches. And I'm going to do that at the same time so that we can really help men to feel less isolated and alone. When men start to go on their personal journey, a lot of men go into the space of having to do it alone, and that's really challenging, and it doesn't have to be done alone. And when there is support, you can go into deeper levels, and that's going to help prevent as so much male suicide and depression and anxiety. And the more that we share this work, the more that it's going to become more normalized for men to work on their emotions and vulnerability. So I'm going to quickly tag and we will get straight into it. Actually, I could tag and you could start telling everyone, because I would love to know as well, what has led you to the work that you're doing. What is your own personal journey and the adversities that you've gone through that's inspired you to do the work that you're doing?
Thanks, Danielle. Look, a couple of things. Everyone's got their own story. I'll give you the exact summary of mine, and then you can go deeper because I don't want to bore anyone. But in a nutshell, between ages 14 and 21, I would feel like suicidally depressed, and it would come every winter for me. I would have kind of like a high in summer and then like a mad crash in winter, and it would with a mind that is new to these concepts of personal development and learning to be conscious of your own thoughts. And I didn't have any of this education. I didn't know how to manage like that type of situation, and honestly, I truly kind of feel like I was saved by just grace throughout that time, because thank God, like, I didn't do anything harmful to myself during that time. But that really prompted my interest to look deeper into these concepts. And after that, I came across a really wonderful book, which I spoke to you about, called The Way of the Superior Man, which started to give me some form of guidance, at 19 years old, some kind of guidance as to how to navigate these types of things. And at 21, I ended up going to a meditation camp, a silent meditation camp called Vipassana, where you can't speak for 10 days. But as a result of, by the way, Danielle, there's something near the microphone which is causing a disturbance. Not sure what that is.
Is it still doing it now?
No.
Okay, beautiful.
Basically, going to that meditation camp, which is pretty intense, helped me develop an understanding that we are not our thoughts, and the things that are going on in our head and the emotions, it doesn't have to define us. And you are able to take a step back and view them kind of from a third perspective. Those were my early exposures to it. After that, I got into corporate. So for me, I was in the army. I was at uni. I finally got into corporate, and when I was in corporate, I just personally hated it. I just was so unfulfilled. I did not like it whatsoever, and I've made some amazing friends and mentors along the way, but I was never satisfied or fulfilled with the work. But at 21 years old, another thing that I did was I went to Costa Rica to build an orphanage there, because I heard that you can do this thing called volunteer travel, where you can just go to like a country that's needing a bit of help, and you can help with building projects or teaching or nature rehabilitation, things like that. And so I went to Costa Rica, and obviously doing helping build an orphanage is like a very fulfilling thing. And so I had a reference point of a life that you could live that is actually quite fulfilling. But then I was in corporate, and for me personally, it was such a contrast to what I had experienced in Costa Rica. So at 23, I went to Indonesia to build a kindergarten because, again, I was looking for that fulfillment. And then at 25, basically, I had reached like a point in my career at a relatively young age, which was like a pretty good point in my career, and I had achieved a lot of things. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, hey, I really should be feeling a lot more happy about my achievements than I currently am. And basically what happened was I had this project to deliver. I was a project manager, and I had this project to deliver, and it was this crazy project. It was supposed to be impossible, blah 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 blah. And me and the team ended up delivering it in 6 months. And I remember getting to the office on the Monday afterwards, and that whole day I could not even lift up a pen. I was like, what the F was the point of that? I was like, man, we worked our guts out for 6 months, like tired, sleepy, like whatever. And for what, man? Like to help some company build tunnels through the Great Barrier Reef like faster than we're already killing it. It just didn't make any sense to me, and I didn't feel any sense of satisfaction from doing it. And so that day, I did two things. I booked sick leave, and I booked an Airbnb in the northern beaches. And I basically told my parents, "Don't freak out. I'm going to go away to this Airbnb for a week and just chill out and just sort my head out because I can't keep doing this." Um, and basically I was doing meditation. I was reading The Way of the Superior Man, and it was a pivotal point in my life. I'm so blessed. Even looking, I'm 32 now, and I'm still look back at that time, and I'm like, man, I was really blessed because um, I was freaking out, and I asked myself the question, well, what is it that I really want to do? And I'm like, well, the only thing that makes sense is to go do more volunteering work again. And I had my parents in my ear and everyone just going, Dim, what are you doing? Are you seriously considering quitting your job and not having another one and going overseas and volunteering? Like, what are you thinking? And my best friend at the time gave me like this awesome piece of advice, which is, Dim, since when have we been the type of people to talk about things but not actually do it? Dude, you're either going to go to Africa and do this, or you're going to go back to corporate. But either way, make a decision and shut the F up, is basically what he said to me. And he was so right. And that day I made the decision, and I went home to my parents and I said, listen, if you have to throw me out of the house, throw me out of the house. But I've made my decision. I'm not going to go back to this. Like I'm quitting this, and I'm going to do the one thing that made me happy all this time. And that's what I did. And I left. I spent 6 months away in total, traveling through Africa and all that. And doing that, Danielle, it was like my first exposure to listening to my own voice and allowing my own voice to come to the surface instead of everyone else's voice. And it's like turning an ember into a flame, because it's like we all have our own voice, but if we don't breathe life into it, then it doesn't have a chance to grow and guide us more, right? And so I finally like listened to it, and as a result of doing that, it was like it spoke to me more, and I became more confident and understanding of my own direction. And at the same time, because obviously my friends didn't know what to say to me, and they're still my close friends to this day, but they didn't know what to say to me when I was going through that. And basically, what came to my aid during that time was this personal development body of knowledge. It was Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. It was The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. It was Superior Man. It was all of them. The Alchemist and all those big beautiful books. And they gave me guidance in that time. And when I came back, I started to share what I learned on Instagram, just because I had learned all these beautiful lessons, and as I'm implementing it, I started to share it. And I had figured out my direction. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go buy a bunch of property and become financially free so I can go build orphanages again. And so I decided to go back to corporate, but because of, I think, the things that I learned and the level of kind of confidence I cultivated within myself, I went from earning 60,000 a year to 200,000 a year when I'm still 25 years old. And I just like, I built up like a pretty big property portfolio, and like I really did pursue that thing of the properties. But meanwhile, as I'm sharing all this stuff on Instagram, young guys started to come to me looking for advice as to, Dim, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this? And that's how I ended up doing coaching. I started to do it part-time, and then at age 29, I basically left corporate for good, and here I am 3 years later doing men's coaching full-time. So that's the story. It was a bit longer than an exec summary, Daniel. I apologize.
No, I appreciate it, because I mean, everyone's story and where they've gotten to, it is hard to summarize, because there are so many different steps. And I think it's important for people, and for men especially, that are in corporate and come to, I see a lot that come from a space of, I'm just not feeling fulfilled. And I feel like I've created this amazing business and I've put so much time and energy in it, and why am I still feeling empty? So I think it gives a lot of resonance to people that are in that space, and to understand that, to question themselves and inquire their own mind and go, hang on, have I done this because it's expected of me, or because my family wanted me to, or, you know, is this actually what's fulfilling for me? Or do I even know myself as to what brings purpose to my life? There was one thing I wanted to ask around when you went into the workshops at 19 and you learned that you are not your thoughts. While you were going through your journey, did you have this knowing and this learning that you'd uncovered playing out throughout that time, that you are not your thoughts, and how did that help you during that phase of not feeling fulfilled and not getting stuck in the emotion and the thought of that?
What a great question. Like, there's so many layers to that, Danielle, but at a really basic layer, see, at 21 was the last age that I felt that level of suicidal depression, that I was not able, like, and I really didn't know how I was going to get through. And my life used to be like, hopefully I can just survive one more year. Like, hopefully I can just make it for one more year of my life. But it was like, screw my dreams of like, I wanted to be a fighter pilot like Will Smith in Independence Day. Like, that was like my big thing back when I was in high school. I just wanted to be, you know, and but I dropped out of aeronautical engineering because I was just like, I don't know, like it was so hard, and I just felt so depressed and so lonely and all that. And it was like all my dreams, like for what I wanted my future to be, is just all shattered. And for me, just making it through one more year was hard enough. And going through that process and those workshops of learning that to separate and realize that I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions, I'm my awareness of them. When I was 22, the next year, I remember winter was coming, and I remember going, oh man, like I gotta like be real vigilant, like, you know, this depression's gonna come again, and you know, I might get in, you know, I might go to a really bad place. But that year when it came, it was like so much less, because it was like, oh, I was like, I could see it in my body. I could see, oh wow, there is this energy field of depression here. And yeah, if I was to go into it, there's all these like thoughts that come out of it. But I was able to see like the level of space. So like I remember moving through that year of 22 going, oh my God, like maybe I have like a chance of life, like you know, like here. And I mean that then and there like helped me so much. But beyond that, going through the corporate journey, you know, something really nice, like the way you expressed it, it reminds me of there's a book called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. You read it by any chance?
I haven't, but I've heard much about it.
It's almost spiritual, that book. You know, it's made for like, you know, high performing type of people, but it's a very spiritual kind of book. And one of the things he talks about is, he goes, in life we have two blueprints. The first blueprint is the blueprint that we create about our beliefs of the world, our beliefs of ourselves, the way we think, you know, our beliefs about money, and our belief about the way life should be. That's our first blueprint and our first pattern of the world. And that blueprint ends the day we realize we can write our own blueprint. The first blueprint just happens as random as we grow up, but the second blueprint happens when we realize we can write our own blueprint. And to me, developing a consciousness that I don't have to just go with all my thoughts and emotions, and I can take a step back. It helped me start to cultivate the second blueprint. And for me, knowing that, hey, this is not, it's the classic thing. My parents told me, hey, look, you got to like study hard. You got to get into a good school so you can do well in your HSC, so you can get into a good uni, so you can get a good degree, so you can get a good job, so you can find a good girl, so you can have good kids, and then you can shut the fuck up. Sorry to swear. And but I felt like and I know it's cool with you. I felt like I had gone far enough on that journey to go, man, I've never been happy doing this. I don't think I want to do this anymore. So yeah, it definitely helped a lot, to answer your question.
Yeah, and that analogy around the blueprint, that's like, well, we have that conditioning from our parents and society, and that first blueprint is our experience, and it's our subconscious programming, and our thoughts and our feelings are a reaction and to that, and we actually don't have control of that because that's so ingrained in our minds. But it's getting to that point of, hang on, I actually have a choice and I can choose something different. And I actually, most people don't even, we don't think we have choice. We just think we have to do a certain thing until you're like, oh, wow. Oh, I can actually choose what makes me happy. I can choose where I put my time and energy. I can choose where I spend my money, rather than having this belief that I have to do this because it's expected of me and society and my parents. And it's really empowering to have that moment of, all right, I just need to recognize that those beliefs are actually have been projected onto me.
Yes.
And I've lived them out, but now I can choose to put new beliefs in place that actually are aligned with my heart and soul and my consciousness.
Absolutely. And it's a scary thing, like that. I think most of us spend our life, well, there's a whole part of society that spends their life running away from recognizing what you just said, because it's scary to question your own reality, and it takes courage to question your own reality. But I think something that makes the job a lot easier is slowly opening your mind to meeting different types of people. Because when you can become familiar with different types of people who are living a different type of lifestyle, you can see, hey, they're okay. They've somehow figured it out, and learning from them, like that, the benefit of some kind of mentorship or some kind of peership with the right people can make such a difference. And I think, like, for me personally, I really felt that was missing. Like, I remember myself and my friends, like overall myself and my friends, the guys I kept around me were guys with like a growth mindset. But I remember we all kind of felt that void of not being connected to people who were doing the other way of doing it. But if there's one thing that someone listening could take from this, it is possible, and it's not that scary. It is just different, and you just have to learn and be around people who can show you. But it is possible. So I hope that's hopeful and helpful to someone.
One of the things that I, in my research and watching you and learning you as a coach, was noticing that you're ex-military, and I have seen my own awareness of people coming out of military, and they have quite amazing personal development and self-awareness skills. To me, the men that I've specifically worked with that have come out of those spaces have a larger worldview. So what tools were you taught during, how did that come about, when in your life, and what tools for personal development did you learn in that you now implement in your own life and with your clients?
Yeah. So basically, from when I was 18, that's when I went into it. And I went into it because I knew that hey, like I would love some extra mentorship. And I know that being around these guys, I could learn some leadership skills and some ways that apparently supposedly the top guys in the world of leading, I could learn from them. So that's why I went. In terms of things that I learned, so many, but I think a big one, Danielle, is, believe it or not, they really do, in a way, try to crush your ego out, which is really beautiful. One of the big things that they teach you in basic training is no one gives a flying fuck about an individual victory. No one cares, because your the army or your team is only as strong. It's only strong if it works as a team. If you're working as scattered individuals, it's going to fall apart and you're going to die. So you've got to be working as a team, and so they teach this, I think, beautifully, in that they, for example, like let's say that you've got 90 seconds to pack your bag. You're in the field and you have 90 seconds to pack your bag and get strapped up and ready to go. And the thing is, you'll have guys initially who they will finish that within 90 seconds, and then you'll have guys who are struggling to finish within 90 seconds. And initially, you'll see the guys who finished it within 90 seconds looking at the guys who are still struggling with like a bit of disgust, going like, oh man, like you're so slow, you're so useless. But then those are the guys who are looking in disgust are the guys who actually can end up getting reprimanded by the instructors, because the instructors are like, hey dude, no one cares if you are ready. If the team's not ready, then no one's ready. So like if you've got extra time, you should be helping the other people. And so things like that crush the the ego out, and they crush the sense of individualism out, and just go, hey, we're only as strong as we are as a team. So I think that was a really big one, and that encourages a lot of communication, a lot of social awareness, because understanding like it's not just about you. There's a whole team around you, and like we've got to work together for this thing to win. Like like one day maybe you'll have my beautiful fiance on your podcast, but I think even in our relationship, bless us, like we really try to work as a team. Like it's not just one individual and their decisions, because we are stronger together. And so yeah, that is a big one. I think the other one is, it helps you just develop confidence in your leadership skills, in that they just say, hey, listen, just get out there, just be in front of people, just try to deliver the orders, and just see that no one's really going to bite your head off for it. And recognizing that leadership is service. One of the things, like I train my boys when we're going through the retreats or whatever, is we're not just doing it for you. We're doing it because you owning yourself and achieving a level of self mastery and a level of self leadership and a level of self governance and self fulfillment and happiness. It allows you to be a better guy for your wife, and a better father for your children, and a better leader in your work. And so it really is about service. I'm very contribution is one of my highest values. Like yeah. So um, those are the probably two things I took away from it. Big things.
Yeah, that's actually really beautiful to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I hadn't quite linked. I know that they crush the ego out, but I had never linked it to awareness and consciousness, and for the collective. You need to get rid of your own superiority or the judgment that you have of others, so that you can come into this level of being of contribution for everyone, because you are only as strong as everyone in your field. And I think what you were saying about working as a team in your relationship, I too personally think that if you're choosing relationship, and that's something that you're choosing, then self comes first. You have to honor that. You have to fill your cup. You have to have that self-discipline and work on your own beliefs and blockages, and come more into yourself, so that you can be that strength for your relationship, but then also making the relationship a massive priority in your life. Because I feel that, and it sort of leads into our next question actually, I feel that if your relationship isn't strong and you're choosing it, it has a flow and effect in every single part of your life. And that understanding that if you're not doing the work here, your relationship's going to suffer. And people usually like to point the blame that it's always the other person, of course, and don't take ownership for their own stuff. So I will just jump into that next question around, you talk about working with with men in two main areas. And one of those areas was around the emotional side of relationship. Can you talk a little bit more about what you see with men and why that's such a focus for you and your clients?
You know, I think the easiest way to understand that is something that we've all experienced. Like nothing brings your shit to the surface like a relationship does. You know, like Eckhart Tolle says, if you really want to know how spiritual you are, spend a weekend with your parents. I'm just smiling because you've heard it, but the same thing. Nothing brings it to the surface, and I've had, gosh, like I take my hat off to the boys that are looking to work on this stuff, because they're really, really, really loving dudes, and they're just like, man, I can see that I've just kind of got anger issues that are coming out in the relationship, and I don't want that. You know, I don't want to be like that for this girl. Or I can see that I seem to have this kind of crippling fear or anxiety, and I don't like step out and talk to women or engage women as I should. Or whether they have sadness issues, or often underneath it all from the past, there is elements of hurt. To answer your question, Danielle, what we end up finding is that a lot of the stuff that show up in the relationships, as anger issues, as jealousy, as anxiety, as fear, as sadness, as hurt, whatever, it's pretty much always attributed to old emotional baggage from the past. And that's something that I do think there's not that much education on just yet. But effectively what it is I always encourage the boys to think of emotions, emotional baggage, and belief systems like a table. All you need like 3 events from the past to happen in order for you to construct a belief system. So an easy example I use is, say, with money. If you've had a situation where you've struggled with money, and then you've seen people with money being really, I don't know, cocky or rude or whatever, and then you've seen people without money be super nice or whatever, then you've got like 3 or 4 references, and you're like, cool, if you need money, that means you have to be a prick. Or like if you have a lot of money, it means you're a prick. And we develop a belief system, and sometimes they work until they don't. And when we're in the relationship, you find that there's anger issues that come up because basically in the past we've had instances which have made us angry and led us to develop meanings around things, and maybe not resolve them entirely in the past where they happened. And we kind of carry that with us as these kind of irrational belief systems sitting in our subconscious. Some of these belief systems can be things like, well, if she is not this certain way, that means she doesn't love me, you know, or if she doesn't do this X, Y, and Z, it means that she's trying to disrespect me or something. And we have this temptation to make it about us and kind of be irrational, and it's kind of happening underneath the surface. It's hard to see it at first, but as a result of that, you have issues that happen in the relationship, and that's what the boys come to me for. They come because they're like, I'm experiencing. I don't have the education around it. Of course, they don't. None of us did, and it's about helping them understand. Well, what is it that you're experiencing in the relationship? Okay, well, when was the first time you remembered feeling angry like this? Was it? And then they're like, oh, well, you know, I've got a lot of issues with my dad, or I've got issues with my mom. And it typically originates from something in childhood. And when you can help someone go back to those times in childhood and understand what happened there and resolve those emotional charges at that layer, for some reason they just stop showing up in the relationship. You know, you confluence that with good education around masculine and feminine dynamics, and helping the boys understand feminine dynamics. When you have those two, where you have basically a clear state emotionally and the right knowledge to complement it, you can create some really beautiful things. And I've had guys who've come to me, multiple guys, where their marriage has been on the rocks, and 1-2 years later, I see happy photos where they're they're obviously still together. The kids are growing up. They've got new kids, new babies, and it's all thanks to them and thanks to them being loving enough to want to work on it. So it was a long answer to your question, Danielle, but I hope it was useful.
That's something that I really, really see is that men and women don't understand their opposites' energy, and living in a universe or a world that is created in polarity and separation, it's really challenging for a lot of the guys because of their beliefs based on their childhood, exactly the patterns that just continually play out, and it's like we live in this society that's sort of like, oh, well, the grass is always greener. And it's like, well, no, different faces, different places. You're going to have the same stuff come up over and over again until you look at it, because it is your subconscious trying to speak to you about what's actually going on inside your body, inside of your mind. And that looking at that and looking at the feminine, and for giving that awareness of the feminine functions very different to the masculine energy. And when you give that education, and I love The Superior Man, it's definitely a book that I recommend to a lot of people as a base start point, because of the knowledge that's in it, and understanding those dynamics, and helping a man to sort of connect to his purpose and his emotions. But how it explains a lot around the feminine energy and how you can have more loving union, and what each energy drives for, so from my understanding of that book, I got a lot out of the masculine energy is all about consciousness and presence, and the feminine energy wants to live in love. So if you've got two people on quite a strong pole, and they maybe haven't done so much work on balancing out both sides, then they have completely different drivers to what fulfills them. And that's where this conflict can sometimes come in, because if we were aware enough as society, and we had the tools of communication and understanding, we would be able to ask questions to understand the other part, and to also see, oh, maybe I could embody more of their good qualities and balance that out to become more wholesome within myself.
That is so well said. Sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt. Please go on.
No, I think I was done.
I'm bursting with things to say, but you're saying so much good stuff there.
Go. You say.
Man, oh man, I just really love what you said. Because this knowledge area is actually so deep and so fulfilling to when you start to implement this in your own life. I'll say two things. The first thing is, spiritually, it's like our soul is always trying. All right, how do I explain this without losing anyone? Here's what
I'm already perceiving what you're putting down, and I'm like, yes, say that.
Here's what I've seen, and I hope that there's someone listening that hopefully you'll find this insightful. When you look at this concept, by the way, it applies to so many things beyond just relationships. If you look at what the universe is really trying to do underneath it all, in this stage of our lives, it's trying to grow. Like from the Big Bang, this thing is expanding, and everything is prompting us to grow. And here's the thing with growth. It needs to be some type of sustainable growth. Now, I'll relate this to relationships in a second, because relationships are ultimately prompting us to grow. And part of growth, as I said, needs to be sustainable. So an easy way to identify this is if you look at like a stock market chart. If you look at the Bitcoin chart shoots up like this, and then it has massive crashes down like that. And I'm sure a lot of us have had the fantasy that it's going to go up forever, and the crash and the nightmare and the depression when it doesn't work like that. In the same way, if something's flatlining, it's obviously not growing either. But if you look at something which aggregates all of the different stocks, like the top 500 US stocks, you'll see that it doesn't grow crazy like that, and it doesn't flatline. It kind of has, it's called regression to the mean. It kind of like, it goes up, it has like tiny recessions and big ups, but it kind of returns to a more steady, sustainable rate of growth. Now, how is this applicable? I invite you to think of like a pendulum. And a pendulum is always trying to return to a state of equilibrium, of balance. Why? Because that is the state that is most conducive to growth. Now, how you can apply this to relationships is if you are, for example, on one side of the pendulum, on one end, like you're too aggressive, say, you're naturally going to attract a partner who is the opposite, who is cooling and calm. When why? Because probably for her, she spiritually or in a soul journey or whatever you want to call it, she wants to develop more of her outspoken voice and more of her self-confidence. And for you, you can intuitively feel that you want to return to a center where you want to become more balanced and more equanimous and centered. And this is, if you can embrace this incredibly difficult journey of growth and staying open-minded and just being brave and stepping out of yourself and stepping out of your ego and really just being brave, there is a very beautiful support and challenge dynamic that exists in everything in life, and it shines beautifully in relationships where she will be supporting you in some cases, in some areas of life, and she's going to be challenging you in others. And it's all about trying to return to a state of being equanimous, of being equilibrium. Like in Buddhism, it's called the middle path, but it's basically about being balanced. Because if you are too far on one end, you are going to receive feedback from the universe to come the other way. And that's the first thing I'll say. And I could totally go on that, in so many different things, Danielle. But the second thing is, you talked about values. If we, we all have our own unique expression of values. So for example, my probably highest value is like appreciating life and living it to the fullest. Probably number two is like contribution. Probably number two is relationship. Number three is contribution. Number four is like camaraderie. And when I say values, you can identify what your values are by seeing what you naturally do with your time, with your money, with what you want to watch on YouTube, what you're interested in, what you want to bring conversations back to, like what your life seems to always revolve around and gravitate towards, and you feel into your space. That's what you value. That the actions don't lie. You can kind of see, even though you think you may value relationships, if you spend 24/7 working, you clearly have a high value on work, and that's okay. We all have our own individual expression of values, but suffering will happen when you expect you expect me to live by your values. You're going to be disappointed. And if I expect you to live by my values, you're going to be disappointed. And if you expect you to live by Dim's values, you're going to be disappointed. The key is organizing and prioritizing our life around our highest values. And if we are looking at our partner and expecting her to live by our values, we're probably going to be disappointed. So there's a lot to it, Danielle. It's a beautiful area of work and very educational.
110%. Like, I look back at my marriage and with the awareness that I have now, and I'm like, wow, how different it could have possibly been had I have come to this information before I did. I mean, it was the gift that actually has given me so much reflection and understanding of becoming more whole within myself. Just reflecting on so many areas of contrast and understanding what that was really truly trying to teach me. But one of the things that you talked about around the values, and you don't always have to have the same values, but you definitely have to have an understanding and allowance for the fact that somebody else has different values to you. And the value part, I had no idea. Like, for me, one of my biggest values is creation and contribution. And my previous relationship, it was love and family. And so it was just this massive contrast of expecting each other and not understanding each other and not fitting together. And I think through learning and becoming more integrated and balanced within myself and understanding how the universe is teaching us, it's taught me that I'd probably prefer, we're always going to have that contrast, of course, for soul growth. So I would prefer to minimize the amount of pain and contrast and expectation and have someone that has a similar value system and body of work within themselves and find that union in that way, because you're always going to attract the opposite to you to help you grow anyway. So it just being a race of people that have so many expectations and judgments it's built into us. I find from what I've seen that the more similar you can have in your outlook at life, the more peaceful it can be.
You want to be aligned in your top 3 highest values, for sure. Like, you know, in relationships, the way Tony Robbins expresses this, by the way, for people watching, he expresses this as the 6 human needs. So you've got certainty, which is the need to feel safe and secure. So, you know, we want certainty of a roof over our head and income and things like that. Uncertainty, which is variety, which is, you know, you don't want to eat the same exact thing for breakfast, lunch, dinner every single day for the rest of your life. We all need variety. So you have certainty, uncertainty, significance. We all do want to feel a sense of being significant. Love and connection, growth and contribution. And I definitely think that, you know, if I look at myself and Anna, our top 3 highest values for sure are contribution, love and connection, and growth. And you definitely want a pairing like that. It just makes the job a lot easier. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we'll go on to the next part of the main areas that you work with men, and that is working you work with a lot of guys in corporate, and they come to you with this lack of drive and motivation and loss of purpose. So what have you found to be some of the main issues and underlying beliefs that maybe get a man to that space within themselves where they're needing to reach out because they've lost all drive for what they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it manifests as not really wanting to show up to work on Monday and always living for the weekend and using the weekend to kind of escape with bad habits or drinking and drugs or whatever. And the irony is that we think that that's normal. Like I came from corporate. Like most of my friends are still in corporate. We think that it's normal to kind of not want to be there. And I'm telling you, man, like for me personally, I was like, I can't spend what, a third of my life or more not wanting to be there. Like I can't do that. And typically when boys come to me, that's kind of what they're feeling. They're kind of feeling like, hey, I'm not overly enthused about what I'm doing. I kind of find myself lacking self-confidence. I kind of feel like I don't feel the drive. I know that there's opportunities. I know that there's money on the table. I know that there's more I could be doing, but for some reason I'm not doing it. And what they feel is this lack of motivation, fulfillment, drive. Like it's almost mixed in all there, and it manifests as them not showing up as powerfully as they know they could, and they don't know why, and they kind of think that that's normal. And when they come to me, the first thing I help them understand is it's not normal, man. Like you deserve to have a really wonderful life where you're actually really enthused about what you're doing. And the thing is, a common misconception we all have is that, or a lot of us have, is thinking that their job description is enough, or like that promotion is enough, or that dollar figure is enough. Like I'm not here to say money is not important. Of course, money is important, and money can help you do a lot of good things. But we, you know, often, have you ever heard of spiral dynamics, Danielle? Yeah, yeah. It's so for people watching there, you're a legend, Danielle. There's a beautiful there's a beautiful framework out there, and you can Google it for the people who are watching. It's called values levels or spiral dynamics. And basically what it is, it's a psychological framework of human development, which basically means it helps you understand why we do what we do and why we feel what we feel at different areas of our life. And there's 8 different levels, but for the sake of this conversation, level 5 is characterized as the level of the high achiever. It's the level of knowing the rules of the game and actually starting to excel in that. So the corporate high achiever, the young executives, the young managers, the gold medalists, the entrepreneurs, like the people who are excelling in sports, and by the way, you may be a high achiever in sports, but not necessarily a high achiever in corporate or whatever. But that's your level 5 expression of level 5 in that area of your life. You can be at different areas of your life at different level. So with guys who come to me, typically they're in that high achiever bracket where they feel like they're doing really well. But what they explain in this methodology is that you can reach the land of plenty only to realize that fulfillment comes from within. And that's the migration from the transition from level 5 to level 6, because level 6 is recognizing that fulfillment actually comes from within. Often at times when guys come to me, I help them realize that a job description is not enough. Qualification is not enough. No, what is enough though is actually recognizing who you really are inside, what your values are. And here's the thing: your mission and your purpose are just a vector of that. They're an expression of that over time. Like ultimately, if you look at myself for an example, I contribute. I love camaraderie. I love like living life to the fullest. Everything I do, my retreats, all of these things, it's just an expression of my highest values. That's why I'm naturally really good at this versus really good at skateboarding, for example. Right? I'm not good at skateboarding. I'm not good at surfing. I'm not good at so many things. But I'm playing my strengths and I'm really enjoying it and I'm inspired to do it because it's what I naturally like. So it's a lot easier to create longer term goals in that. And once you satisfy your own individual goals and you prove yourself to yourself, this is called dragon slaying mode. You go from dragon slaying mode to empire building mode. And once you've slayed enough dragons to prove to yourself that you are enough, then you step out of yourself and step into, well, I want to use this to actually help other people now. And so that's the kind of journey I take the boys on. And part of that is helping them understand. Part of that is helping them clear their own mind, because obviously often there's a lot of self-judgment, a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of lack of self-belief, and it's going to the root causes of why they feel that way and resolving it. And what you find is this beautiful manifestation of guys finding their own voice, their own purpose within themselves. And here's the thing about purpose. We spoke earlier about in the army you don't want to like look down on someone, but you also don't want to look down on yourself, because that is still egotistical. Whether you're looking down on someone else or looking down on yourself, you're still thinking about yourself. Truly stepping out of your ego is about freaking stepping out of yourself and looking around you and going, how can I freaking help the people? I don't like, for me to start on this journey, Danielle, um, my mentality kind of has always been, if it just helps one guy, like who's to say that's not enough? And like that's what's given me the gut, like for me to step out of like the cultural conditioning and all of that stuff, to go, you know what, like I'm going to step out there and talk about my story vulnerably, or talk about these concepts. um it's easy to get caught up in our own self-image, and instead I'm like, well, if I get caught up in my own self-image, like I'm not going to help anyone, am I? So it's truly about stepping out of that. It doesn't matter whether you think you're above them or below them. Forget about you. Just think about them and go and help them. So it's another long answer, Danielle, but like when the boys come, it's about learning that fulfillment comes from something deeper than just the job description.
Yeah, 100%. I also want to add in around the spiral dynamics, or another good one is the 9 stages of ego development, and that's on Leo from actualize.com. He's amazing with those sort of pragmatic processes and different information systems. But when you use something like that, if you're coming into a space and you want to go into personal development and you're wanting to actually do this work on yourself, when you look at these different systems and you're identifying maybe where you are on it, to see it without judgment, to see that, okay, maybe you are only at level 3 or 4, or maybe you're a little bit higher, but to not go into any sort of judgment of that. It's just an awareness of, okay, this is where I'm at. And if I have an awareness of where I'm at, then I know what sort of information to feed my mind. I know what sort of tools to use, because I've got an understanding of how that part of the ego and the mind works. And it gives you a focus point of where to go, and just not to, I guess I see a lot of people that, I'm going to say this as kindly as I can, that will judge themselves as being more conscious than what they actually are. And I remember reading once a book that says, if you think you're this conscious, then, drop it back a bit, because the ego feeds off that, and it fills these unconscious superiority and self-worth beliefs that are programmed, that we have of our shadow sort of sides, and really just be truthful and honest with yourself, because that's what this whole journey is about. Is you won't be able to truly grow and step into your power and potency and your authentic self if you're not being honest. And that takes ownership and looking at the truth and the true reality of what you're showing up with in that moment and calling yourself out.
And it's appreciating the implications of, if you don't do that, like what's going to happen. Like, it's so easy to avoid these things, but avoiding them usually comes with the consequence of suddenly finding you're not as motivated anymore, feeling unfulfilled, issues in the relationship. Like, I think often we're not conscious to what it actually costs us. For me, I've heard this beautiful expression, which is, hell can be defined as getting to the end of your life and meeting the person you could have become. And I'm like, man, like my life is going to end. It could be tonight. We don't know when our life is over. But I just want to know that while I was here, like I really did the best I could. I don't want to be running, man. That's it sounds like such a basic mentality, but that mentality's got me really far, and it's got my boys really far.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting that you bring that point up, because I was listening to a podcast on unworthiness, and they were talking about the people that end up with chronic illness and disease at the end of their life. And the thing that most people do is that I didn't do enough. I didn't put enough into me, and I didn't have enough curiosity, or I didn't try that thing. And it's they didn't show up for themselves enough. They didn't.
It's called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. I think that's the book you're referring to.
I don't know. It was. I'm not. Maybe.
Oh, but, it's from the Unworthiness podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, so someone studied. Someone, I think it was a nurse, a bedside nurse, studied all these people. Yeah, that's what you're referring to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she studied all these people who were coming to the end of their life, and she asked them, well, what are the things that you regret? And then she realized there was this kind of top 5 that kept showing up. And a big one is kind of what you're just saying, which is that I just kind of wish that I showed up more than I did and wasn't as worried as I was.
Yeah, which is a lot to think about, and we can let people simmer on that. So one of the things that you use in your body of work is NLP. I would love you to, because I know we're getting close to time, yes, and I don't want to hold you up too much. Please, can you share about what NLP is, how it works, and how you use it with your clients?
No problem. NLP is one of many tools that that a good coach will probably use to help people. At the core of it, what NLP is an understanding of how your perception works, because ultimately your perception will create your reality. So when you understand, like, in an exec summary point of view, there's 11 billion bits of information coming into us at any one time, which is too much. And basically, we need a way to filter that information. The brain is primarily a deletion device. So we filter that information based off our sense of ourself, our sense of the world, our values, our beliefs, our past experiences, things that we want to focus on. And as a result of that, we create what's called an internal representation of what we see, like, what's going on in the world outside. And so basically that means that while Danielle and I are in the same reality right now, technically Danielle and I are experiencing different realities right now, because Danielle's values and beliefs and all that stuff is different from Dim's, and everyone's got a different one. And when I'm in my retreat, I tell my boys, yes, we're all sitting in the same reality right now, but in actuality, there's 6 different realities being experienced right now. And I'll prove it to them. I'll say to them, I just want you to fill in this blank for me. The world is, and someone will say, hey, the world is beautiful. Someone will say the world is big. Someone will say the world is challenging. In the history of my retreats, I've only had one guy that said the world is confusing. And ironically enough, he was the one guy in the history of all my retreats who got lost on the way to the retreat. And surprise, surprise, his worldview is the world is confusing, and he found a way to get lost. And it's not about having a go at him in any way, because at the end of the day, he showed up and he was trying to work on himself, and he's amazing. But it's more about recognizing that, hey, if this is how we interpret reality and we understand it, then we have the ability to change it. And by changing it, so for his one, I think his was the world is confusing. He changed it to the world is my oyster, and he learned how to start to think that the world is oyster, and he bloomed beautiful opportunities for himself, like 20K pay rise, like all these opportunities came because instead of looking for how the world was confusing, he started to look for opportunities in the world, and he started to see them. So that's basically at a high level view how NLP works. And basically, when you understand how you perceive things, and also how you have mental patterns on how we think, and emotional patterns on how we feel, you realize that we have the ability to interrupt and to change them. And by interrupting and changing them, you are changing the way you perceive the world. And when you change the way you perceive the world, then you literally are changing your reality. And that's what NLP is.
Yeah, definitely. And that's very much the perspective I have with my body of work is you create your own reality. And when you start to look at the way you have perceived it, and very much how those beliefs really affect our body and the amount of suffering that we have in our mind. And just when you say something like the world is confusing and how contracted that can be, and that can trigger the mind, and then you can, because that's how the mind works, like it has a belief and then it searches. So that can spiral someone into a whole lot of confusion, and that's exactly what it does. And the thing that I really love that I think a lot of people don't understand is that when you interrupt that program that's been running, and you interrupt it and you ask a question, or you get somebody to see their experience differently, it gives the brain an opportunity to fire a different neuro pathway. And once you do that, then you can fire more, and the awareness that you gain, and it can be quite fast, how much your worldview and your awareness of yourself and your external reality can change in a really magical way, really quickly.
It's beautiful. A story. Are we out of time, Danielle? It's okay if we are.
I'm happy to stay on. It's totally up to you.
I've got a bit of time. Like a story that I tell that my boys, when they first come, which really helps them, is it's a true story. When I was in year 11, I was doing like what's called 3-unit English, 3-unit maths. And in year 12, I got into what's called 4, basically the hardest type of maths and English you can do. And I honestly credit to that, I had these amazing teachers. But in year 12, my maths teacher retired. He was an amazing teacher. He retired. And I basically got this new teacher and he sucked. I'll call him Mr. Brown. And Mr. Brown, he just didn't know how to manage the class. He sucked. And basically, I innocently, at 17 years old, created a humble little story in my head that I'm better at English than I am at maths. And basically, I ended up, because of that little story, what do you think will happen? It's like you will rock up to English more confidently than at maths. You maybe won't study as hard as at maths because you know you're better at English. You're not as good as maths. So you don't study as hard, maybe you seem to struggle a bit more, and it reflects in your results. And it reinforces that belief that, oh, I knew it. I'm better at English than I am at maths. It reinforces it. And it's this feedback loop that goes on. And for me, I ended up dropping out of 4-unit English to do, 4-unit maths to do 3-unit because of that story. And in uni, I got into aeronautical engineering, but because I had this story that, hey, I'm better at English than I am at maths, I ended up doing really well in all the written assessments, but then really poorly in all the technical ones. And I'm like, yeah, see, I'm better at like these English, like business skills and stuff. Like I'm not so good at this technical stuff. And this story just evolved. And then I ended up dropping out of aero to do commerce because I'm better at the business stuff than I am at the technical. And when I got into corporate, my story almost got corroborated by the people I was working with, because they're like, oh, wow, how great. You're a non-technical project manager. Great. We need someone who's awesome with people skills and leadership. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And so because I put myself in those situations, I became better at people skills and whatever, leadership and management and all that. But I sucked at all the technical stuff. But it was because of this little stupid belief. And at 28 years old, when I was leaving corporate to do this, to do coaching, the number one thing that was holding me back was my technical ability. And then I recognized, oh man, like for the last 11 years, I've been running this story and I just got it from freaking Mr. Brown. Like I got and I was like, wow, like I would have made, if I had recognized that, I would have showed up so differently. And anyway, in that moment, I'm like, you know what? I got to drop that story because it's kind of not true. It was just made up by innocent 17-year-old Dim who just didn't know any better. And I started to tell myself, I have the intelligence of Bruce Wayne. My mind is razor sharp. And, I had these affirmations going on. And they sound silly and they're funny. But basically, if you tell yourself that every day, that you have the intelligence of Bruce Wayne, then the next time something hard comes up that's technical, you kind of can't help but try a little bit harder. And then as a result, you get a bit further. And then you're like, oh, maybe I am smarter than I thought. And now, even through this this session with you, Danielle, I've talked about so many methodologies and frameworks, and I don't need any notes. I don't need anything. I actually do have a really good technical knowledge now. And it really started with just interrupting old patterns and putting in the right one. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And I love that that story and explaining how much those beliefs really do affect our experience and how we see ourselves and how our mind works. Because when you were saying that, I mean, I've noticed this within myself, and it's still one that I'm working on myself, because it was throughout a couple of my relationships being more of a power and control dynamic. So one of the tactics in those sort of relationships is gaslighting and making someone question their reality. And I would always hear the person say, I have such an amazing memory and you don't have a very good memory. And so that was something that had actually been projected and programmed to me over and over and over and over like 12 years. And so I started playing this, oh yeah, I don't have a very good memory. Wow. And I don't retain information very well. And so when you were talking about the knowledge and the things that you're holding on to, that's where I still have this little bit in there where it's still holds that, oh, I'm not good at retaining, and like I'm not good at remembering things, I'm not good at remembering quotes, and it's a story that I desire to rewrite, because I understand the way the brain works, and it's not my story. It's a program that it has been running, and it doesn't serve. So, but it is amazing how when you have something projected at you as well, that you can take that on as being true and real for you, and make that a part of your own reality. Which is why I believe that it's so important to question your beliefs, question your stories, question your narratives, and see, is that even mine? Like, did I create that, or was that something that I just onboarded from somewhere in my external reality as being true and real for me?
Absolutely, absolutely. Joe Dispenza, his book is called, one of his books is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And it beautifully just explains how a personality is built, and as a result, how a personality can be changed. You know, we're not trapped into being this one type of person. No way. For me, you know, to riff on that point, Danielle, Tony Robbins talks a lot about gratitude meditations. And I remember when I was first exposed to it, I'm like, oh man, no, that's not for me. I'm like, that's no real man will do that. But anyway, but Tony does it. So like, I just, this is me. This is 2016 Dim. Okay, 2021 Dim is a little bit more mature. Basically, basically, I a little bit. So basically, I started to. I just look. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. But I will do it because just whatever. Give it a fair trial. So I started to do the gratitude meditation every morning, and I remember I started doing it on a Monday. I remember on Friday, and I remember feeling so awkward and so self-indulgent doing it. But come Friday, I remember just standing there randomly going, man, I just feel like really happy. Like, why do I feel so happy all the time? And then I realized, man, like this gratitude meditation, it's changing my emotional home. You know, Newton's second law is object in motion tends to stay in motion. Homeostasis, habit patterns, it's all one and the same thing. It's just that the universe to conserve energy, us to conserve energy, we like to be creatures of some type of habit. You know, we have emotional habits, we have mental habits or patterns or whatever we want to call them. And you know, we often get into those by random just events, and we do have the power to change those emotional habits. Tony Robbins calls it changing your emotional home. And basically, that was back in 2016, but that completely changed my life. Just doing this gratitude meditation every day, I just started to not only just feel a lot better because my brain was more trained on gratitude and recognizing what was good about the world, but I actually started to do really well at work as a side note because um, while everyone else's brain has been trained to just see all the issues and all the things that are wrong, gratitude primes you to be able to see all the opportunities. And if you can see the opportunities when everyone else is stressing, you tend to do really well. So yeah, man, there's so many good things on that point. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Dim, can you share with us what upcoming events that you have for any of the guys listening to this, or the women even, that may be able to share this on to what retreats or what your services are, and see if they resonate for them?
Thanks, Danielle. Primarily, I work with people one-on-one on Zoom, just like this. That is pretty COVID adaptable. My retreats are currently postponed. I've got my next few retreats. I'm blessed to say are booked out, and because of COVID, we've had to postpone the date of that. So I do retreats, but primarily I work with people one-on-one because I do want to help them make a change and enter a new chapter of their life. So that's not the most economical model, but I fiercely just believe in that for now. So I would tell anyone, if they wanted to reach out to me, you just go to my Facebook page. There'll be a link to just messaging me and just chatting. We'll just chat on the phone, see if we vibe, and if we're the right fit, then we can continue. But thank you.
Beautiful. And lastly, what is your most valued lesson in life?
That's a beautiful question, Danielle. Honestly, I really do believe love is the answer. And I believe that when we are living I think that any practice that gets us to cultivate greater levels of um, compassion or you know, love for people and greater levels of equanimity, equanimous or balanced mind. Any practice that cultivates equanimity and compassion is a good practice, no matter what you do. And when you can feel yourself not living in a state of balance, then you know it's time to go, okay, well, how can I return to balance? So yeah, love and balance are like the truth of life. That's the most valuable lesson I've learned. And any good practice will try to return you to that.
I feel that so deeply within my heart, because it's exactly how I see the world, and love is the way. And if you can come into your heart in any moment, any stressful moment, any contrasting moment, and even just place your hand on your heart and bring yourself into that space, you can have more compassion and kindness and understanding, not only for you, but for the people in your direct experience. And it can break that that cycle as well. So thank you for that. That's absolutely beautiful. I know to contact you if anyone wants to reach out to Dim. He has Instagram. What's your Instagram?
Yeah, it's Dim Hapa, so it's DIMHAPA. Whether you type that on IG or on Facebook, you'll find me.
Beautiful. And your website, what is the website address?
Yeah, it's raw-coaching.com.au. If you go to that, or even if you go to my socials, you'll find your way to my website.
Thank you so much for a really expansive, conscious, loving conversation. It was absolutely, I'm now going to be working on my memory, because I love listening to people like you that can reference books and speakers and quotes, and I'm just in awe of that.
Yes.
So thank you so much for your time, energy, and your level of wisdom.
Oh, Danielle, thanks for having me. It was seriously a pleasure. I'd love to maybe one day come back, keep doing this. Thanks for having me, seriously.
Beautiful. All right, have a beautiful night, and thank you everyone for watching.